The phone buzzed at 3:47 a.m., pulling Keisha from the deepest sleep she'd had in months. She fumbled for it in the darkness, squinting at the bright screen. A text message from Marcus, her husband of 8 years. Her heart did that little skip it always did when she saw his name, even after all this time. But the words on the screen made her blood turn to ice water. I want a divorce. Papers will be served tomorrow. Don't try to contact me. It's over. I've moved the money from our joint account. You'll figure it out. Keisha sat up so fast her head spun. She read the message again. Then again. The words didn't change. They sat there on her screen like a slap across the face, cold and final. Her hands shook as she tried to call him. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. The automated voice told her his mailbox was full. She stumbled out of bed and ran to her laptop, her bare feet slapping against the cold hardwood floor. Her fingers trembled as she logged into their bank account. The joint account they'd built together over 8 years of marriage. The account that held their down payment savings, their emergency fund, everything they'd worked for. $0.00. The screen showed the last transaction, a withdrawal of $47,000 at 11:23 p.m. the night before. Electronic transfer to an account she didn't recognize. Keisha stared at the screen until her eyes burned. This couldn't be real. Marcus wouldn't do this. Not her Marcus. Not the man who brought her coffee in bed every Sunday morning. Not the man who held her when she cried about her mother's death last year. Not the man who promised to love her through everything. But the empty account didn't lie. The text message didn't lie. She called his work. I'm sorry, Mrs. Williams, but Marcus put in his 2 weeks' notice yesterday. Today was his last day. He said he was relocating for a new opportunity. Relocating. He was leaving town. Leaving her with nothing but an empty bank account and a text message divorce. Keisha sat in her kitchen as the sun came up, still in her pajamas, staring at her phone. The reality was settling in like cement in her chest. 8 years of marriage, ended with 47 words in a text message. 8 years of building a life together, erased with a few clicks on a banking app. She thought about calling her sister, but what would she say? That she'd been so blind, so trusting that she never saw this coming? That she'd given Marcus access to everything and he'd taken it all? The doorbell rang at 9 a.m. sharp. A man in a cheap suit handed her an envelope. Keisha Williams? You've been served. Divorce papers. Real ones with legal letterhead and her name spelled correctly. Marcus had planned this down to the minute. She sat at her kitchen table and read through the papers. He was asking for nothing except his freedom. No alimony, no division of assets. That was because he'd already taken everything that mattered. The house was in her name only. Her grandmother had left it to her before she got married. Her car was paid off and in her name. But everything else, every dollar they'd saved together, was gone. Keisha had always been the trusting type. Some people called it naive, but she preferred to think of it as optimistic. She believed people were basically good. She believed love conquered most problems. She believed that when you married someone you became a team. Looking at the divorce papers, she realized how stupid that made her. But as she sat there in the morning light, something else started to grow alongside the hurt and shock. Something that surprised her with its intensity. Anger. Pure, clean anger that felt like fire in her chest. Marcus thought he was so smart. He thought he could just disappear with their money and leave her with nothing. He thought she'd curl up and cry and let him get away with it. He had no idea who he was dealing with. Keisha had grown up poor in Detroit. Her mother had raised 3 kids alone after their father left, and she taught them that when someone tries to knock you down, you get back up swinging. Not with your fists but with your brain. With your determination. With everything you had. Marcus came from money. His parents had paid for his college, his first car, the down payment on his first apartment. He'd never had to fight for anything in his life. He'd never had to be creative when he had nothing. That was about to become his biggest mistake. Keisha made herself a cup of coffee and sat back down at the kitchen table. She pulled out a notebook and started writing. Not a list of things to cry about. Not a list of things she'd lost. A list of things Marcus didn't know about her. Things he'd never bothered to learn in 8 years of marriage. Things that were about to matter a whole lot. At the top of the page, she wrote, Marcus thinks he won. Under that, she wrote, he has no idea what's coming. The phone rang. Her sister Crystal. Girl, I just had the strangest dream about you. Are you okay? Keisha looked at the divorce papers scattered across her table, at the empty bank account on her laptop screen, at the text message still glowing on her phone. I'm about to be more than okay, she said. But first I need to tell you what happened. And then I need to ask you for a favor. Crystal had always been the family's problem solver. She worked in insurance investigations, which meant she knew how to find information about people. Information they didn't necessarily want found. What kind of favor? Crystal asked. The kind that's going to teach Marcus why you don't steal from a woman who has nothing left to lose. As Keisha started to explain what had happened, she felt something she hadn't felt in hours. She felt like herself again. Not the crying, broken woman who'd been served divorce papers. Not the victim who'd been robbed in the middle of the night. She felt like the woman who'd put herself through college working 3 jobs. The woman who'd built a small business from nothing. The woman who'd survived everything life had thrown at her so far. Marcus was about to learn that stealing someone's money was the easy part. Living with the consequences was going to be much, much harder. Crystal arrived 30 minutes later with a box of donuts and a laptop bag. She took one look at Keisha's face and set everything down on the kitchen counter. Show me, she said. Keisha handed her the phone with Marcus's text message, then turned the laptop around to show the empty bank account. Crystal read the message twice, then looked at the banking information. $47,000, Crystal said quietly. That son of a... Don't, Keisha said. Don't waste energy being mad. I need you to help me think. Crystal opened her laptop and cracked her knuckles. Tell me everything you know about where he might have gone. That's just it. I don't know anything. He never talked about wanting to leave Chicago. Never mentioned job interviews or opportunities somewhere else. Never said he was unhappy. Men don't just wake up one day and decide to steal their wife's life savings and disappear, Crystal said, her fingers already flying over the keyboard. This took planning. Which means there are traces. Crystal worked in insurance fraud investigation, which meant she had access to databases that regular people didn't. She also had friends in various places who owed her favors. What's his social security number? Crystal asked. Keisha rattled it off. After 8 years of marriage, she knew Marcus's information by heart. Social security number, driver's license number, passport number, even his employee ID from the consulting firm where he'd worked. When did he quit his job exactly? Crystal asked. Yesterday was his last day. But he gave 2 weeks' notice, so he told them 2 weeks ago. Right around the time he would have started planning this. Crystal's fingers paused over the keyboard. Keisha, I have to ask you something and I need you to be honest. What? Was there another woman? Keisha had been asking herself the same question all morning. I don't think so. He never acted different. Never stayed out late or got secretive with his phone. Never changed his routine. That doesn't mean anything. Smart cheaters don't change their routine. Then I guess we'll find out. Crystal pulled up several screens on her laptop. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to track his movements from 2 weeks ago until now. Bank records, credit cards, phone records if I can get them, social media activity. If he planned this, he left breadcrumbs. While Crystal worked, Keisha made more coffee and tried to think. Marcus was methodical about everything. He made lists for grocery shopping. He planned their vacations 6 months in advance. He researched restaurants for 20 minutes before choosing where to eat. There was no way he'd planned something this big without leaving traces. Got something, Crystal said after an hour. He opened a new bank account 3 weeks ago. Different bank across town. How do you know that? Credit report inquiry. When someone opens a new account, the bank runs a credit check. Shows up as an inquiry. Can you see the account? Not the balance or transactions. But I can see it exists. Crystal kept typing. And here's something interesting. He applied for a credit card the same day. High-limit card. Why would he need a credit card if he was planning to steal our money? Maybe he needed credit for something he couldn't pay cash for. Like a deposit on an apartment in another city. Crystal pulled up another screen. I'm checking flight records now. If he left town, he probably flew. Can you actually access flight records? Not directly. But I have a friend who works for TSA. Owes me a favor from a case I helped her with last year. While they waited for Crystal's contact to get back to them, Keisha walked through the house. Everything looked normal. Marcus's clothes were gone from the closet, but he'd done that gradually. Looking back, she realized he'd been taking things bit by bit over the past 2 weeks. Smart. If he'd cleared out all at once, she would have noticed. In his study, his desk was completely clean. No papers, no personal items, nothing. Even the trash can was empty. But Marcus wasn't perfect. Nobody was. Keisha got down on her hands and knees and looked under the desk. There, wedged between the desk and the wall, was a small piece of paper. She pulled it out. It was a receipt from a shipping store. Dated 1 week ago. For a package sent to David Chin in Portland, Oregon. Crystal, she called. Crystal came running. What is it? Keisha showed her the receipt. Who's David Chin? Crystal was already pulling up search engines on her laptop. Let's find out. After 20 minutes of searching, they had an answer. David Chin was Marcus's college roommate. According to social media, he lived in Portland and worked for a tech startup. I remember Marcus mentioning him, Keisha said. They stayed in touch on social media but hadn't seen each other in years. Until now, Crystal said. I bet Marcus has been planning this longer than 2 weeks. I bet he's been talking to David for months. Crystal's phone buzzed. Text message from her TSA friend. Marcus Williams. Flight to Portland yesterday morning. One-way ticket. Got him, Crystal said. Keisha felt a mix of satisfaction and fresh anger. So he's in Portland with his college buddy, living off our money. Probably thinks he's home free, Crystal said. Probably thinks you'll just accept it and move on. He really doesn't know me at all, does he? Crystal looked at her sister. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Marcus made a big mistake. He stole from the wrong woman. What do you want to do about it? Keisha had been thinking about that all morning. She could call the police, but proving theft in a marriage was complicated. She could hire a lawyer, but that cost money she didn't have anymore. She could try to track him down and confront him, but that might just push him further away. Or she could be smarter than that. I want to make him come back, she said. How? By making it impossible for him to stay away. Crystal raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. Marcus thinks he's got it all figured out. New city, new life, plenty of money to start over. But he forgot something important. What's that? He's still married to me. And I'm about to become the most expensive wife he's ever imagined. Explain, Crystal said, settling back in her chair. Keisha pulled out her phone and opened her notes app. Marcus is smart, but he thinks like someone who's never had to fight for anything. He took the money and ran because he thought that was the end of it. And it's not. Not even close. Keisha started pacing around the kitchen. He filed for divorce, right? But divorce takes time. We're still legally married, which means I still have certain rights. What kind of rights? Well, for starters, I can contest the divorce. I can drag it out for months, maybe years. Make it expensive and complicated. Crystal nodded slowly. Divorce lawyers charge by the hour. Exactly. And since he's the one who filed, he has to pay his lawyer whether I fight it or not. But you don't have money for a lawyer. I don't need money up front. I can find a lawyer who'll work on contingency or who'll take payment when we settle the marital assets. What marital assets? He took everything. Keisha smiled for the first time since she'd gotten that text message. He took everything he knew about. But Marcus never paid attention to the details of my life. There are things he doesn't know I have. Like what? My business, for one thing. Crystal looked confused. What business? You work for the marketing firm downtown. I do. But I also have a side business doing social media consulting. I started it 2 years ago, just small stuff at first. A few local restaurants, a couple of small retailers. But it's grown. How much has it grown? Enough that I have 12 regular clients now and a waiting list. I've been keeping the money in a separate business account that Marcus didn't know about. Why didn't you tell him? Keisha sat back down at the table. I was going to. But every time I brought up money or finances, he'd take over the conversation. He'd start talking about his investment ideas or his retirement planning. He never asked about my ideas or my goals. So he has no idea you have your own money. None. And that's not all. Keisha pulled up something on her phone. Remember my friend Jasmine from college? She's a real estate agent now. Okay. She's been after me for 2 years to flip houses with her. Says I have a good eye for design and marketing. I always said no because Marcus thought it was too risky. And now I don't need Marcus's permission for anything. Crystal was starting to smile. You're going to make money while he's spending his. I'm going to do more than that. I'm going to make his life in Portland very uncomfortable. How? Keisha opened her laptop and pulled up several tabs. Marcus is methodical, remember? He plans everything. Which means he probably researched Portland before he moved there. Probably looked up apartments, jobs, restaurants, gyms, all that stuff. So he probably used his real name and information for most of it. Which means I can find out where he's living and what he's doing. Crystal leaned forward. What are you thinking? I'm thinking about hiring a lawyer in Portland to serve him with papers. Not just responding to his divorce filing, but filing my own claims. What kind of claims? Fraud, for starters. He emptied our joint account without my knowledge or consent. That's illegal even if we're married. Is it really? I looked it up this morning. In Illinois, both spouses have equal rights to marital assets, but neither spouse can unilaterally drain joint accounts without the other's knowledge, especially if it's done in preparation for divorce. Crystal whistled low. You've been busy. I also looked up Oregon law. If he's living there now, I can file claims in Oregon court too. Make him deal with legal issues in multiple states. That sounds expensive for him. Very expensive. And time-consuming. And stressful. But what's the end game? You make his life miserable and then what? Keisha had been thinking about that all morning. Then I make him an offer he can't refuse. Which is? He gives me back half the money he took, plus compensation for the legal fees and emotional distress he's caused me. In exchange, I'll agree to a quick, clean divorce with no further claims. And if he says no? Then I make his life so expensive and complicated that giving me the money becomes the cheaper option. Crystal sat back in her chair. That's actually brilliant. But what if he calls your bluff? It's not a bluff. I'm dead serious about making this as difficult as possible for him. But you're not actually trying to get him back? God, no. I don't want him back. I want him to pay for what he did to me. Crystal nodded. Okay, I'm in. What do you need me to do? Help me find everything we can about his new life in Portland. Where he's living, where he's working, what he's doing with his time. Consider it done. They spent the next 2 hours building a comprehensive picture of Marcus's escape plan. Crystal's various contacts and databases revealed a disturbing level of premeditation. Marcus had been planning this for at least 3 months. He'd researched Portland thoroughly, connected with David Chin, looked into job opportunities, even researched divorce law in both Illinois and Oregon. But he'd made one crucial mistake in all his planning. He'd underestimated his wife. Look at this, Crystal said, pointing to her screen. He set up a LinkedIn profile with a Portland address 2 months ago. Started connecting with people in the tech industry there. So he's been job hunting. More than that. Look at his activity. He's been commenting on posts, sharing articles, building a professional network. This isn't a guy who's planning to live off stolen money forever. He wants to start a career there. Which means he wants respectability. He wants to fit in and be seen as successful. Right. And nothing ruins respectability like ongoing legal drama with an angry ex-wife. Keisha felt that fire in her chest again. He wants a clean slate? I'm about to make sure he doesn't get one. Crystal's phone buzzed with another message. My friend at the credit bureau came through. Marcus applied for an apartment lease in Portland 5 days ago. Did he get it? Looks like it. Nice place too based on the address. Downtown loft, probably expensive. How expensive? Crystal looked it up. $2,500 a month. For a 1-bedroom? It's Portland. Everything's expensive there. Keisha did quick math in her head. So he's spending $3,000 a month just on rent and basic living expenses. Our money won't last him as long as he thinks. Especially not if he has to start paying lawyers. Time to find a lawyer in Portland, Keisha said. She spent the next hour researching divorce attorneys in Portland, specifically looking for ones who specialized in complex cases involving fraud and interstate issues. She found exactly what she was looking for in Sarah Martinez, a partner at a mid-sized firm who had excellent reviews and a reputation for being aggressive but fair. Keisha called the office and managed to get a consultation scheduled for the next day via video call. What are you going to tell her? Crystal asked. The truth. That my husband stole our life savings and fled to another state, and I want to make sure he pays for it. And you think she'll take the case? I think any lawyer would love a case this clear-cut. Marcus left a paper trail a mile long. He's going to be easy to find and even easier to prove guilty of fraud. Crystal closed her laptop. You know, when I woke up this morning, I thought I was going to spend the day comforting my heartbroken sister. And instead I'm helping plan the most expensive mistake of Marcus Williams's life. Keisha looked around her kitchen at the divorce papers still scattered on the table, at her laptop showing their empty bank account. 12 hours ago, she'd felt like her life was over. Now she felt like it was just beginning. The video call with Sarah Martinez went better than Keisha had hoped. Mrs. Williams, the lawyer said, leaning forward on her screen, what your husband did constitutes several different crimes in multiple jurisdictions. The fact that he planned it so carefully actually makes it worse for him legally. How so? Premeditation. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a mistake. This was calculated theft with the intent to defraud you of your marital rights. Sarah had reviewed all the documentation that Keisha and Crystal had gathered. Bank records, flight information, the timeline of Marcus's job resignation and apartment hunting in Portland. I can file charges in Oregon for theft and fraud. I can also work with an Illinois attorney to file claims there for violation of marital duties and breach of fiduciary responsibility. What does that mean exactly? It means we can go after him for punitive damages on top of the money he stole. Pain and suffering, attorney fees, costs of investigation. We can make this very expensive for him. And if he fights it? Sarah smiled. Then it gets even more expensive. Discovery alone will cost him thousands. We'll subpoena his bank records, his employment records, his communications with his friend in Portland. We'll depose everyone who helped him plan this. Including David Chin? Especially David Chin. If he knowingly helped Marcus hide stolen assets, he could be liable too. Keisha felt a surge of satisfaction. How long would all this take? If he fights it? Could be 2 years or more. If he's smart and wants to settle? We could have this resolved in a few months. And you'll really take this on contingency? Mrs. Williams, cases like this are why I became a lawyer. Your husband thought he could steal from you and disappear without consequences. I'm going to show him how wrong he was. After the call, Keisha felt energized in a way she hadn't in years. She had a plan, she had help, and she had something Marcus didn't expect. The willingness to fight as dirty as necessary. Crystal had been busy too. She tracked down David Chen's employer and discovered something interesting. David works for a startup that's trying to raise venture capital funding, she said. They're in a sensitive phase where any negative publicity could kill their chances. So if David gets dragged into a fraud case involving stolen money, it's going to look bad for his company. Really bad. You think that matters? I think David's going to pressure Marcus to settle this quickly before it affects his career. That afternoon, Keisha did something she hadn't done in years. She called Jasmine about the house flipping opportunity. Girl, I thought you'd never call me back about this, Jasmine said. Your husband finally came around to the idea? My husband is no longer part of my decision-making process, Keisha said. Tell me about this house. It's perfect for a first flip. 3-bedroom bungalow in Oak Park, needs cosmetic work mostly. Paint, flooring, kitchen update. The owner is motivated to sell fast. How much? $120,000. We could probably get it for $115,000. Put in $30,000 worth of work and sell it for $180,000, maybe $190,000. Keisha did the math. Even splitting the profit with Jasmine, she'd make more than $20,000 on her first deal. I'm interested, she said. When can we look at it? Tomorrow morning? Perfect. That evening, Keisha sat down with her laptop and did something else she hadn't done in years. She worked on her business plan. Her social media consulting had grown organically, client by client, but she'd never really planned for expansion. She'd never thought about what it could become. Now she had nothing but time and motivation. She spent 3 hours researching the market, analyzing her competition, and mapping out a growth strategy. By the time she went to bed, she had a plan to double her client base within 6 months. The next morning, she met Jasmine at the house in Oak Park. It was exactly what Jasmine had described. A solid structure with good bones that needed cosmetic updating. The kitchen is the main issue, Jasmine explained as they walked through. It's stuck in 1987. But the layout is good, and the appliances just need to be replaced. What about the bathrooms? One needs a complete renovation, the other just needs new fixtures and tile. Keisha walked through each room, taking pictures and making notes. She'd been watching home improvement shows for years, but she'd never imagined herself actually doing it. How long would the renovation take? She asked. If we're doing the work ourselves? 3 months, maybe 4. If we hire contractors for the big stuff and do the cosmetic work ourselves? 6 to 8 weeks. And you think we can really sell it for $180,000? Look at this neighborhood, Keisha. Houses are selling fast, and there's nothing else on the market in this price range that's been updated. Keisha looked around the living room. The hardwood floors were original and beautiful under the old carpet. The windows were large and let in lots of natural light. The bones were definitely good. Okay, she said. I'm in. Really? Really? Let's make an offer. They spent the rest of the morning with Jasmine's real estate contacts, putting together an offer of $112,000 with a quick closing date. By afternoon they had a deal. I can't believe you just bought a house, Crystal said when Keisha called her with the news. I can't believe it either. But it feels right. What does Marcus think about? Oh wait. Crystal started laughing. Marcus doesn't get an opinion anymore. Nope. And you know what? It feels amazing. That evening, Sarah Martinez called with an update. "I filed the initial paperwork in Oregon court," she said. "Marcus should be served with papers tomorrow or the next day." "What happens then?" "He has 30 days to respond. But I'm betting we'll hear from his lawyer much sooner than that." "Why?" "Because I also sent a courtesy copy to his friend David Chin, along with a letter explaining that he may be called as a witness in a fraud case involving stolen assets." Keisha grinned. "How do you think David's going to react to that? If he's smart? He's going to tell Marcus to settle this immediately. And if Marcus refuses? Then we move to the next phase. Full discovery, depositions, forensic accounting of all his assets. We make his life very complicated." That night, Keisha lay in bed thinking about how much her life had changed in just 3 days. 3 days ago, she'd been a trusting wife who thought her biggest problem was whether to get hardwood floors refinished. Now she was a soon-to-be divorced woman with a lawsuit pending, a house-flipping business starting, and a plan to make her cheating husband's life as expensive as possible. The strangest part was how good it felt. 4 years, she'd been making her decisions based on what Marcus wanted or thought was best. She'd been living his life, following his plans, being the person he wanted her to be. Now she was being herself again. The woman who'd put herself through college. The woman who'd built a business from nothing. The woman who didn't back down from a fight. Marcus had thought he was taking everything from her. Instead, he'd given her the greatest gift possible, her freedom. Tomorrow she'd start renovating her first house. And Marcus would start paying for the biggest mistake of his life. Marcus called at 6:30 a.m. Keisha was in her kitchen drinking coffee and reviewing her notes for the house renovation when her phone buzzed with his number. She'd been expecting this call since Sarah had told her the papers would be served. She let it ring 4 times before answering. "Hello, Marcus." "Keisha, what the hell do you think you're doing?" His voice was tight with anger and something else. "Fear maybe. I'm having my morning coffee." "What are you doing?" "Don't play games with me. You know exactly what I'm talking about." "The lawsuit?" "Oh, that. I'm making sure you pay for stealing from me." "I didn't steal anything. We're married. It was as much my money as yours." Keisha almost laughed. "Really? Is that what you told your lawyer?" "I don't need a lawyer for this. You're being ridiculous." "Marcus, you emptied our joint account in the middle of the night and then sent me a divorce text at 3 a.m. You quit your job and moved to another state without saying a word to me. And now you're surprised that I'm not just quietly accepting it? This doesn't have to be complicated. Just withdraw the lawsuit and let's handle this like adults." "I am handling it like an adult. An adult who's not going to let someone steal from her." There was a long pause. "What do you want?" "I want half the money you took, plus compensation for the legal fees you're forcing me to pay, plus damages for emotional distress." "That's insane." "What's insane is thinking you could steal $47,000 and disappear without consequences." "I'll give you half the money. 23,000. But that's it. Not enough." "Keisha, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. You're the one who made this complicated by committing fraud." "It's not fraud. Tell that to the Oregon District Attorney when my lawyer forwards them the evidence." Another long pause. "What evidence?" "Marcus, you documented everything. Bank records, flight reservations, job applications, apartment leases. You left a paper trail that shows exactly when you started planning this and how you executed it. Planning to leave isn't a crime. Planning to steal is." She could hear him breathing heavily on the other end of the line. "Look," he said, his voice softer now, "I know this looks bad. But I wasn't trying to hurt you. I needed to get out." "You needed to get out so badly that you had to take all our money with you?" "I needed a fresh start. You could have asked for a divorce without stealing from me. You would have fought it. You would have made it complicated." Keisha sat back in her chair. "You're right. I would have. Because I loved you, Marcus. I would have fought for our marriage." "I know. That's why. But you didn't give me that chance. You decided to sneak around behind my back for months, planning your escape, making sure you could disappear with our money." "Keisha. So now I'm going to fight for something else. I'm going to fight to make sure you pay for what you did to me. This is exactly why I left. You're being emotional and irrational." The fire in Keisha's chest flared. "I'm being emotional? Marcus, you stole my life savings and moved across the country without warning. If I'm emotional, I have every right to be. Just tell me what you want to make this go away." $30,000. Plus 5,000 for legal fees. Plus a written apology." "A written apology?" "Admitting what you did and acknowledging that it was wrong." "I'm not doing that." Then I guess we'll see you in court. Keisha, wait. She hung up. Her phone immediately started ringing again. She turned it off and finished her coffee. 20 minutes later, Crystal called the house phone. Girl, Marcus has been blowing up my phone trying to get me to talk to you. What did you tell him? I told him he was lucky you were only asking for money and not filing criminal charges. What did he say to that? He got real quiet. I think it's starting to sink in how much trouble he's in. An hour later, Sarah Martinez called. Interesting morning, the lawyer said. I got a call from a Portland attorney who says he's representing Marcus Williams. Already? Apparently your husband retained counsel the minute he was served. The lawyer wants to discuss settlement. What kind of settlement? He didn't give specifics, but he made it clear that Marcus wants this resolved quickly. Good. That means David Chin is putting pressure on him. Most likely. Nothing motivates a quick settlement like the threat of bad publicity. So what's our next move? We wait. Let Marcus and his lawyer make the first offer. The fact that they're already talking settlement means they know we have a strong case. That afternoon, Keisha met Jasmine at the Oak Park house to start planning the renovation. I can't believe you bought a house in the middle of a divorce, Jasmine said as they walked through the rooms with the contractor. It's the best decision I've made in years. Even though your husband stole your savings? Especially because he stole my savings. This house is going to make money. Marcus is going to lose money. The contractor, a man named Tony who specialized in quick renovations, gave them an estimate of $28,000 for the major work. Kitchen cabinets, appliances, bathroom renovation, and flooring. How long? Keisha asked. 6 weeks if we start next Monday. Let's do it. After Tony left, Jasmine looked at her friend with concern. Keisha, are you sure you're thinking clearly? This is a lot of money to invest when you're in the middle of legal problems. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years, Keisha said. Marcus thought he left me with nothing. He has no idea that I've been building something on my own. Your consulting business? That and other things. I've been saving money he didn't know about. I have clients he's never heard of. I have plans he never bothered to ask about. Jasmine nodded slowly. You know what? Good for you. I've been waiting years for you to stop asking Marcus's permission for everything. I never realized I was doing that until he was gone. Oh honey, you were doing that. Every time we'd make plans, you'd say, let me check with Marcus. Every time I suggested a business idea, you'd say, Marcus thinks it's too risky. Keisha felt a flush of embarrassment. Was I really that bad? You weren't bad. You were just lost. Like you forgot who you were before you got married. Well, I'm remembering now. That evening, Sarah Martinez called with news. Marcus's lawyer made an offer. $25,000 for a quick settlement with no admission of wrongdoing. Not enough. I thought you'd say that. I countered with $35,000 plus legal fees plus a written acknowledgement of wrongdoing. What did they say? They'll get back to me tomorrow. But Keisha, I should warn you. They're threatening to drag this out if you don't accept a reasonable offer. Let them drag it out. Every day this goes on costs Marcus more money. It'll cost you too. I can afford it. Can he? There was a pause. Actually, that's an interesting question. My investigator did some digging into Marcus's finances. He's not in as strong a position as he thinks. What do you mean? Well, he took $47,000 from your joint account. But he's already spent almost $8,000 on his move, new apartment deposits, legal fees. And his new lifestyle in Portland is expensive. How expensive? Between rent, utilities, food, and basic living expenses? He's probably spending $4,000 a month minimum. That money won't last him as long as he thinks, especially if he's paying lawyers. So time is on our side. Exactly. The longer this drags out, the more pressure he'll be under to settle. After the call, Keisha sat in her living room and really looked around for the first time in days. The house felt different without Marcus's presence. Lighter somehow. She'd been so focused on the divorce and the lawsuit that she hadn't noticed how peaceful it was to make decisions without having to consider what Marcus would think. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her social media consulting clients. 12 regular clients, all paying her between $500 and $1,500 per month. She'd been treating it like a side business, but the numbers told a different story. She was making over $12,000 a month from her consulting work. More than enough to live on, more than enough to invest in the house flip, more than enough to fund a legal battle with Marcus. Why had she been so worried about money when Marcus left? Because she'd been thinking like a victim instead of thinking like a business owner. Her phone buzzed with a text from Crystal. Marcus called me again. Sounds desperate. Asked if I thought you'd really take this to trial. Keisha texted back. What did you tell him? I told him you'd take it to the Supreme Court if you had to. He got real quiet. Good. Girl, I think he's starting to realize he messed with the wrong woman. Keisha smiled and put her phone away. Tomorrow she'd start working on the house renovation. Next week she'd start expanding her consulting business. And Marcus would keep paying lawyers while his stolen money disappeared. For the first time in 8 years she was excited about her future. The house renovation started on a Monday morning with the sound of sledgehammers hitting the kitchen walls. Keisha stood in what used to be her marriage home, watching contractors tear apart someone else's outdated kitchen, and felt like she was watching her old life being demolished too. You sure you want to take out this whole wall? Tony asked, pointing to the divider between the kitchen and dining room. Positive. Open concept sells better. It's going to be loud and messy. I can handle loud and messy. She wasn't just talking about the renovation. While the crew worked on the house, Keisha set up a temporary office in Jasmine's real estate office. She had client calls to make and a business to expand. Her first call was with a new potential client, a boutique fitness studio that wanted help with their social media marketing. We've been trying to do it ourselves, the owner explained, but we're not getting the engagement we need. What's your current follower count? Keisha asked, pulling up their Instagram account. About 800. And how many new members are you getting from social media? Honestly, maybe 1 or 2 a month. Keisha spent 20 minutes analyzing their content strategy, their posting schedule, and their engagement metrics. The problems were obvious. Inconsistent posting, poor photo quality, and no clear call to action. I can triple your social media leads within 90 days, she said confidently. Really? Really? But it's going to require a complete strategy overhaul. By the end of the call, she had a new client paying $1,200 per month. Her phone rang immediately after. Sarah Martinez. Marcus's lawyer called. They want to meet in person to discuss settlement. In person? Where? They're suggesting Chicago. Marcus would fly back for a mediation session. That's interesting. Why would he want to come back here? My guess? David Chin is putting serious pressure on him to resolve this quickly. Or he's running out of money faster than he expected. Could be that too. Are you willing to meet? Keisha thought about it. Part of her wanted to see Marcus face to face, to look him in the eye while they negotiated. Part of her wanted to make him sweat a little more. Set it up, she said. But I want it in a conference room with lawyers present and everything on the record. Done. That afternoon, Keisha got a call from one of her existing clients, a local restaurant chain. Keisha, we love what you've done with our social media. We want to talk about expanding your services. What kind of expansion? We're opening 3 new locations this year. We want you to handle the grand opening campaigns, plus ongoing management for all 4 locations. That would be a significant increase in scope. And a significant increase in compensation. We're thinking $5,000 a month for the full package. Keisha nearly dropped her phone. $5,000 from one client would more than cover her monthly expenses. When would you need an answer? End of the week? You'll have it tomorrow? After the call, she sat in Jasmine's office doing math. If she took the restaurant expansion plus the new fitness studio client, plus her existing clients, she'd be making over $18,000 a month. More money than she'd ever made in her life. More money than Marcus made at his consulting job. More money than she'd ever imagined possible from her little side business. Her phone buzzed with a text from Crystal. Heard from Marcus again. He's asking questions about your finances. Wants to know if you have money for lawyers. Keisha stared at the message. Marcus was still thinking like the husband who controlled their joint finances. He had no idea that she'd been building something independent of him. She texted back. What did you tell him? I told him you were doing just fine. Didn't give him details, but I made it clear you weren't broke and desperate like he thought. How did he react? Got quiet again. I think reality is setting in. That evening, Keisha drove to the Oak Park house to check on the renovation progress. The kitchen wall was gone, opening up the space dramatically. The old flooring had been ripped up, revealing beautiful hardwood underneath. This is going to be gorgeous when it's done, Jasmine said, walking through the space with her. How's the market looking for houses in this price range? Hot. There are 3 other flips in the neighborhood that sold within 2 weeks of being listed. For how much? $170 to $190. And they weren't as nice as this is going to be. Keisha looked around the space, imagining it with new cabinets, updated appliances, and fresh paint. We might do better than we thought. We might do a lot better. On the drive home, Keisha found herself thinking about the mediation meeting with Marcus. She hadn't seen him since the morning he'd left for work 3 weeks ago, not knowing it was his last day. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a woman whose biggest decision was what to make for dinner. Now she was a real estate investor, a growing business owner, and someone who was about to negotiate a settlement worth tens of thousands of dollars. Marcus had no idea who he was about to face across that conference table. Her phone rang. Unknown Portland number. Hello. Keisha, it's me. Marcus. You sounded tired. What do you want, Marcus? I want to talk before the mediation. Just the two of us. Why? Because we used to be friends. We used to be able to talk to each other. That was before you stole from me and abandoned me. I know you're angry. I'm not angry anymore, Marcus. I'm determined. Determined to do what? To make sure you pay for what you did. There was a long pause. Keisha, I made a mistake. I should have handled this differently. Yes, you should have. Can't we just end this without destroying each other? You tried to destroy me first. You took everything and left me with nothing. But you're not destroyed. Crystal says you're doing fine. Keisha almost laughed. I'm doing better than fine, Marcus. I'm doing better than I ever did when I was married to you. What does that mean? It means you leaving was the best thing that ever happened to me. Another long pause. I don't believe that. You don't have to believe it. You'll see for yourself at the mediation. Keisha, I have to go. I have a business to run. She hung up and turned off her phone. Tomorrow she'd accept the restaurant chain's offer. Next week she'd sit across from Marcus and negotiate his surrender. And in 6 weeks she'd have a renovated house ready to sell for a significant profit. Marcus thought he'd taken everything from her. Instead, he'd forced her to discover what she was really capable of. The mediation was scheduled for Thursday morning in a downtown Chicago conference room. Keisha arrived 15 minutes early, wearing her best navy blue business suit and carrying a leather portfolio that contained copies of every document related to Marcus's theft. She felt calm and prepared. Marcus arrived exactly on time with a lawyer who looked expensive and annoyed. Marcus looked tired and thinner than she remembered. His clothes were wrinkled and he needed a haircut. Mrs. Williams, his lawyer said, shaking her hand, I'm Robert Chin, representing your husband. Chin. Keisha looked at Marcus. Any relation to David? Marcus's face went red. He's David's brother. How convenient. Sarah Martinez arrived moments later, and they all settled around the conference table. The mediator, a gray-haired woman named Judge Patricia Moore, explained the process. We're here to see if we can reach a settlement agreement without going to trial. Both parties have agreed to negotiate in good faith. Robert Chin opened a folder. Mrs. Williams, my client is prepared to offer $30,000 to settle all claims related to this matter. Sarah looked at Keisha, who shook her head slightly. That's not sufficient, Sarah said. My client is seeking $35,000 plus legal fees plus acknowledgement of wrongdoing. My client did nothing wrong, Robert said. The money in question was in a joint marital account. Both spouses had equal access. Equal access that was exercised in secret in the middle of the night, as part of a premeditated plan to defraud Mrs. Williams of her marital rights, Sarah shot back. Judge Moore raised her hand. Let's hear from both parties directly. Mr. Williams, why don't you explain your position? Marcus cleared his throat. Your Honor, I was unhappy in my marriage. I felt trapped. I needed to make a clean break and I needed money to start over. And Mrs. Williams had no idea you were planning to leave? No, ma'am. Why didn't you discuss divorce with her before taking the money? Marcus glanced at his lawyer, then at Keisha. I didn't think she'd be reasonable about it. What does that mean? I thought she'd try to take everything. I thought she'd make it complicated and expensive. Judge Moore turned to Keisha. Mrs. Williams, how do you respond to that? Keisha had been waiting for this moment. Your Honor, my husband is right about one thing. I would have fought for our marriage. Not because I wanted to take everything from him, but because I loved him and I thought our problems could be worked out. And now I realize that he never loved me the same way. Someone who loves you doesn't steal from you. Someone who loves you doesn't abandon you in the middle of the night with a text message. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat. But here's what my husband didn't know when he decided to steal our money and disappear, Keisha continued. He didn't know that I've been building a successful business for the past 2 years. He didn't know that I have my own income and my own savings. He didn't know that I'm financially independent. Robert Chin looked confused. Mrs. Williams, our understanding is that you worked for a marketing firm and had no significant personal assets. Sarah slid a folder across the table. Your understanding is incorrect. The folder contained bank statements showing Keisha's business accounts, client contracts totaling over $200,000 in annual revenue, and tax returns proving her income. My client has been operating a successful social media consulting business that generates over $15,000 per month in revenue, Sarah said. She also recently entered into real estate investment that will generate additional income. Marcus stared at the documents. I didn't know about any of this. That's because you never asked, Keisha said. In 8 years of marriage, you never once asked about my goals or my dreams or my plans. You assumed I was helpless without you. Keisha. You assumed that taking our joint savings would leave me desperate and willing to accept whatever scraps you decided to throw at me. Judge Moore looked at the financial documents. Mrs. Williams, this is quite impressive. Why didn't your husband know about your business success? Because every time I tried to talk to him about money or business, he would take over the conversation. He would tell me what he thought I should do or explain why my ideas wouldn't work. Eventually, I stopped trying to include him. Marcus looked pale. You never told me you were making this much money. I tried to tell you I was growing my client base. You said it was cute that I had my little hobby. It wasn't a hobby. It was a business. A successful business that you never bothered to learn about. Robert Chin whispered something to Marcus, who shook his head. Your Honor, Robert said, my client would like to increase his settlement offer to $32,000. Judge Moore looked at Keisha. Mrs. Williams? Not enough. What would be enough? Keisha opened her own folder. $35,000 plus $5,000 for legal fees, plus a written apology acknowledging that he stole from me. That's $40,000, Robert protested. That's less than what he took from me, and far less than what this is going to cost him if we go to trial. Sarah leaned forward. Your Honor, discovery alone will cost Mr. Williams tens of thousands in legal fees. We'll be deposing his employer, his friend David Chin, David's brother here, the property management company in Portland, his bank representatives. This case could drag on for 2 years. Marcus whispered urgently to his lawyer. Could we have a brief recess? Robert asked. Judge Moore nodded. 15 minutes. Marcus and his lawyer stepped into the hallway. Through the glass wall, Keisha could see them having an intense conversation. How do you think it's going? She asked Sarah. Better than expected. They're rattled. The financial documents showing your independence completely changed the dynamic. Good. I want Marcus to understand that he didn't destroy me. He freed me. When they returned, Marcus looked defeated. Mrs. Williams, Robert said, my client is prepared to accept your terms. $35,000 plus $5,000 for legal fees, plus a written acknowledgement. What kind of acknowledgement? Judge Moore asked. Keisha pulled out a piece of paper. I took the liberty of drafting it. She handed copies around the table. Marcus read it and winced. I, Marcus Williams, acknowledge that I took $47,000 from joint marital accounts without the knowledge or consent of my wife, Keisha Williams. I acknowledge that this action was wrong and caused significant financial and emotional harm. I apologize for my actions and take full responsibility for the damage I caused. I can't sign this, Marcus said. It's admitting to a crime. It's admitting to the truth, Keisha replied. Judge Moore looked at both lawyers. Is this acceptable to both parties? Sarah nodded. Acceptable to Mrs. Williams. Robert whispered to Marcus again. Marcus closed his eyes and nodded slowly. Acceptable to Mr. Williams. Then we have an agreement. I'll have the settlement documents prepared within 48 hours. As everyone gathered their papers, Marcus approached Keisha. Can I talk to you for a minute? Alone. She looked at Sarah, who nodded. They stepped into a smaller conference room. Keisha, I want you to know that I never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me, Marcus. I know. And I'm sorry. Really sorry. Sorry you got caught or sorry you did it? He was quiet for a long moment. Both, I guess. At least you're being honest now. Can I ask you something? Why didn't you ever tell me about your business? Really tell me, I mean. Keisha considered the question. Because you never made me feel like my ideas mattered. Every time I brought up something I wanted to do, you'd find reasons why it wouldn't work. You made me feel like I needed your permission to succeed. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to control me. There's a difference. Marcus nodded slowly. I see that now. Do you? Or are you just saying that because you got caught? I see it now. Seeing those bank statements, seeing what you built without me. I realize I never really knew you at all. No, you didn't. Are you happy? He asked. Without me, I mean. Keisha thought about the past month. The house renovation, the growing business, the freedom to make decisions without asking permission. I'm happier than I've been in years. Marcus nodded again. Good. You deserve to be happy. They stood there for a moment in awkward silence. What happens now? He asked. Now you go back to Portland and build your new life. And I stay here and build mine. Will you ever forgive me? I already have, Marcus. Not for your sake, but for mine. I can't move forward while carrying around anger. Thank you. But forgiving you doesn't mean I trust you. And it doesn't mean what you did was okay. I know. Keisha walked toward the door, then turned back. Marcus? Next time you want to leave someone, just leave. Don't steal from them first. She walked out of the conference room and didn't look back. 2 weeks later, Keisha stood in the completely renovated Oak Park house and smiled. The transformation was incredible. The kitchen now had white quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances, and custom cabinets that made the space look twice as big. The hardwood floors gleamed throughout the house. The master bathroom had been completely redone with subway tile and modern fixtures. It's beautiful, Jasmine said, walking through with a photographer who was taking listing photos. This is going to sell so fast. How fast? I'm betting we have offers within a week of listing. The house had been on the market for exactly 3 days when they got their first offer. $185,000. Do we take it? Keisha asked. Let's wait. I think we can do better. By the end of the week, they had 4 offers. The highest was $192,000. That's a profit of $65,000, Jasmine calculated. After we split it and pay the renovation costs, you're looking at about $28,000 profit. $28,000 in less than 2 months of work. Marcus's settlement check had arrived the same week, along with his signed apology letter. $40,000 as agreed. Keisha deposited both checks and looked at her bank balance. For the first time in her life, she had significant money saved. Not money she'd inherited or money from a husband, but money she'd earned herself. Felt amazing. Her phone rang. Sarah Martinez. Keisha, I have some interesting news about your ex-husband. Ex-husband? The divorce isn't final yet. Actually, it is. Marcus's lawyer filed an expedited petition citing irreconcilable differences. Since you didn't contest it and the financial issues were settled, the judge signed off on it yesterday. Keisha felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. So it's really over. It's really over. You're officially divorced. What was the interesting news about Marcus? He's moving back to Chicago. What? My contact in Portland says David Chen's startup collapsed. They lost their funding after some bad publicity about the founders' personal lives. Personal lives? Apparently having your business partner's friend involved in a fraud case doesn't look good to investors. Keisha almost felt bad for David Chen. Almost. So Marcus is coming back? Looks like it. He put in job applications at 3 Chicago consulting firms this week. Why are you telling me this? Because I wanted to make sure you knew in case he tries to contact you. He wouldn't do that. Men who steal from their wives and flee the state aren't always predictable. After the call, Keisha sat in her kitchen thinking. Marcus was coming back to Chicago. Back to the city where everyone knew what he'd done. Back to face the consequences of his choices. She realized she didn't care. A month ago, the thought of seeing Marcus again would have filled her with anxiety or anger or hurt. Now it just felt irrelevant. He was part of her past, not her future. Her phone buzzed with a text from Crystal. Heard Marcus is moving back. You okay? I'm fine. More than fine. Good. Want to celebrate? Drinks tonight? Can't. Business meeting. Another new client? Better. Meeting with a bank about a business loan. Keisha had been thinking bigger lately. Her social media consulting was successful, but she wanted to expand. She wanted to hire employees, rent office space, maybe even franchise the concept. The meeting with the loan officer went better than expected. Mrs. Williams, your business financials are very impressive. How much are you looking to borrow? $200,000. For what purpose? Office space, equipment, hiring 2 full-time employees, and marketing to expand into new markets. Your credit score is excellent, and your business revenue supports this level of borrowing. I don't see any problems with approval. Walking out of the bank, Keisha felt like she was floating. $200,000 to grow her business. Money that was hers, based on her success, with no one else's name on the paperwork. 6 months ago, she wouldn't have been able to get a business loan because she would have needed Marcus's signature as her husband. Now she was financially independent and legally free to make her own decisions. That evening, she called Jasmine to share the news about the loan approval. "Girl, you are on fire," Jasmine said. "Business loan, successful house flip, divorce settlement. What's next?" "I'm thinking about buying another house to flip." "Already? Why wait? I know what I'm doing now and I have the capital." "You know what? You're right. I actually have a lead on a property that just came on the market. Foreclosure auction next week." "Tell me about it." 4-bedroom colonial in Evanston. Needs work but the bones are solid. Starting bid is $90,000. "What do you think it could sell for after renovation?" $250, maybe $270. Keisha did quick math. Even with renovation costs, that could be a profit of over $100,000. "I'm interested. I'll pick you up at 8 a.m. for the auction." That night, Keisha lay in bed thinking about how much her life had changed. 6 months ago, her biggest decision was what to watch on Netflix. Now she was running a growing business, flipping houses, and planning expansions that could make her wealthy. Marcus had thought he was taking her future when he stole their savings. Instead, he'd forced her to build a better future than she'd ever imagined possible. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown Chicago number. "Keisha, this is Marcus. I'm back in town. Can we talk?" She stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. She had better things to do than talk to her past. Tomorrow she was going to bid on her future. The foreclosure auction was held in a crowded courthouse basement that smelled like old coffee and desperation. Keisha sat next to Jasmine, surrounded by contractors, real estate investors, and people who looked like they'd been doing this for decades. "First time?" asked the man sitting behind them. "Second," Keisha replied confidently. The Evanston Colonial came up as lot number 17. The auctioneer started the bidding at $90,000 as expected. "$90,000, do I hear 95? A man in the front row raised his hand. "95, do I hear 100? Keisha raised her hand. The bidding moved quickly. 105, 110, 115, 120. By the time it reached 130, only 3 people were still bidding. Keisha, the man in the front row, and a woman with a clipboard who looked like she'd been doing this forever. 135, the auctioneer called. "Do I hear 140? Keisha raised her hand. 140. "Do I hear 145? The woman with the clipboard shook her head and sat back. The man in the front row hesitated, then nodded. 145. "Do I hear 150? Keisha looked at Jasmine, who nodded slightly. This was still within their budget. 150. The man in the front row shook his head. 150,000, going once, going twice, sold to bidder number 43. Keisha felt the surge of adrenaline. She just bought a house at auction. By herself. With her own money. How does it feel to be a real estate mogul? Jasmine asked as they walked to the clerk's office to complete the paperwork. "It feels like I'm finally living my own life." The paperwork took 2 hours, but by afternoon, Keisha owned her second investment property. They drove to Evanston to walk through the house with Tony, the contractor who'd done such good work on the Oak Park flip. "This one's going to be more complicated," he said, walking through the rooms. "The kitchen needs to be completely gutted. 2 of the bathrooms need full renovations. And I think there's some electrical work that needs updating." "How much?" Keisha asked. 60,000, maybe 70. "And it'll take 3 months, not 6 weeks. But we can sell it for 250 when it's done?" Tony looked around the neighborhood, checking out the other houses on the street. "Maybe more. This is a good area, and there's nothing else like this on the market." After Tony left, Keisha and Jasmine sat on the front steps of the house, looking out at the tree-lined street. "You know what's crazy?" Jasmine said. "What?" 6 months ago, you wouldn't make a decision about what restaurant to go to without checking with Marcus first. And now I'm buying houses at auction. Now you're building an empire. Keisha's phone rang. "Crystal. Where are you?" "I've been calling all morning." "At a foreclosure auction. I just bought another house." "You what?" "I'm flipping houses now. Didn't I tell you?" "Girl, you're moving so fast I can't keep up. But that's not why I'm calling." "What's wrong?" "Marcus showed up at my office today." Keisha felt her stomach tighten. "What did he want?" "He wanted to know where you live now." "Where I live? I live in the same house I've always lived in." That's what I told him. But he said he drove by and it looked like no one was home. "I've been busy. I'm not home much during the day." He seemed, I don't know, desperate maybe? What did you tell him? I told him to leave you alone. I told him the divorce was final and you'd moved on. Good. But Keisha, I'm worried. He didn't look good. He looked like someone who's lost everything. That's not my problem anymore. I know. But desperate people do stupid things. After the call, Keisha felt uneasy. She'd assumed Marcus would just quietly rebuild his life in Chicago and leave her alone. But Crystal was right. Desperate people do stupid things. She drove home and was surprised to see Marcus's car parked across the street from her house. He got out when he saw her pull into the driveway. Keisha, please. I just want to talk. We have nothing to talk about, Marcus. Yes, we do. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. You made several mistakes. Stealing my money was just one of them. I want to fix this. Keisha turned to face him. He looked terrible. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair was messy, and he had dark circles under his eyes. There's nothing to fix. We're divorced. It's over. But it doesn't have to be. We could try again. Try what again? Our marriage. Our life together. Keisha stared at him. Marcus, you stole $47,000 from me and abandoned me with a text message. You think I'd ever trust you again? People make mistakes. People change. Some mistakes are too big to forgive. But you said you forgave me. I forgave you for my own peace of mind. That doesn't mean I want you back in my life. Marcus stepped closer. Keisha, I lost everything in Portland. My job, my apartment, my friends. I have nothing left. That's not my fault. I know. But you're all I have left. I'm not yours to have, Marcus. I never was. What does that mean? It means you never saw me as a person with my own dreams and goals. You saw me as an extension of yourself. Someone who existed to support your plans. That's not true. It is true. You didn't even know I had a successful business. You didn't know I was saving money. You didn't know anything about who I really was. I want to know now. It's too late for that. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. What if I could prove I've changed? How would you do that? I don't know. Whatever it takes. Keisha looked at him standing in her driveway, begging for another chance he didn't deserve. 6 months ago she might have felt sorry for him. She might have been tempted to try again to give him the benefit of the doubt. Now she just felt tired. Marcus, I want you to listen to me very carefully. Okay. I don't love you anymore. I don't trust you anymore. I don't want to be married to you anymore. But I'm not finished. I built a new life without you. A better life. I have a successful business, I'm making good money, I'm investing in real estate. I'm happy. You could be happy with me too. No, I couldn't. Because being with you would mean going back to being the person who asks permission to follow her dreams. I wouldn't do that again. Yes, you would. Because that's who you are. You can't help yourself. Marcus looked defeated. So that's it? It's really over? It's really over. What am I supposed to do now? Build your own life. Find your own happiness. But do it without stealing from people who trusted you. Marcus stood there for another moment, then slowly walked back to his car. Keisha watched him drive away and felt nothing but relief. The next morning she got a call from Sarah Martinez. Keisha, I have some news. Marcus's lawyer called. Marcus wants to know if you'd be willing to sell him back the house. What house? Your house. The one you're living in. Why would he want to buy my house? Apparently he's having trouble finding an apartment. His credit took a hit after the Portland situation, and he can't get approved for anything decent. That's not my problem. That's what I told his lawyer. But he wanted me to ask. The answer is no. I figured. But there's something else. What? He's asking if you'd be willing to give him a reference for job applications. Keisha almost laughed. A reference? After he stole from me? That's what I said. But he's desperate. He can't get hired anywhere because his former employer won't give him a good reference. Why not? Because he quit without notice in the middle of several important projects. Left them scrambling to cover his work. So he burned bridges everywhere he went. Looks like it. Tell his lawyer the answer is no. To the house and to the reference. Done. That afternoon, Keisha met with her new employees at the office space she'd just rented. 2 young women, both recent college graduates with marketing degrees and social media expertise. I want to be clear about something, she told them during their first team meeting. This company is built on treating clients with respect and delivering what we promise. We don't make promises we can't keep, and we don't take shortcuts that hurt people. Understood, said Jennifer, the first hire. Absolutely, agreed Maria, the second. Good. Now let's talk about our expansion plans. They spent 2 hours going over the client list, discussing growth strategies, and planning the marketing campaign for their services. By the end of the meeting, Keisha felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Running her own company, making her own decisions, building something that mattered. Her phone buzzed with a text message. A known number. Please don't ignore me. I need to talk to you about something important. Marcus, using a different phone number. She blocked the number and went back to work. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus tried to contact her 6 more times. Different phone numbers, emails, even a letter delivered to her house. Each message was the same. He was sorry, he'd changed, he needed her help, he wanted another chance. She ignored them all. Then Crystal called with disturbing news. Marcus came to my office again today. He's not taking no for an answer. What did he want? He wanted me to convince you to talk to him. He says he has something important to tell you. Did he say what? No. But Keisha, he looked unhinged. Like he hasn't been sleeping or eating properly. That's not my responsibility. I know. But I'm worried he might do something stupid. Like what? I don't know. But people who lose everything sometimes blame other people for their problems. He should blame himself. I agree. But that doesn't mean he will. That evening, Keisha was working late at her office when she heard someone trying the door handle. The building was locked after hours, but someone was definitely trying to get in. She looked out the window and saw Marcus standing by the entrance, peering through the glass. She called building security, who escorted him off the property. Ma'am, has this man been harassing you? The security guard asked. He's my ex-husband. He's been trying to contact me even though I've asked him to stop. You might want to consider getting a restraining order. Keisha thought about it. A restraining order seemed extreme. But Marcus's behavior was becoming concerning. She called Sarah Martinez the next morning. I think I need legal advice about Marcus. What's he doing now? Showing up at my office, sending constant messages, asking my sister to intervene. I've made it clear I don't want contact with him, but he won't stop. That's harassment. You can definitely get a restraining order. Is that really necessary? Keisha, men who steal from their wives and then stalk them afterward aren't stable. Better to be safe. Okay, let's do it. The restraining order was filed that afternoon. Marcus would be served with papers requiring him to stay at least 500 feet away from Keisha, her home, and her business. But first he tried one more approach. He showed up at the Evanston house where she was overseeing renovations. Keisha, please. Just 5 minutes. Tony and his crew stopped working and looked at the situation. Ma'am, is this guy bothering you? Tony asked. He's my ex-husband. He's supposed to leave me alone. You heard her, Tony said to Marcus. Time to go. I just need to talk to her. She doesn't want to talk to you. Marcus looked around at the renovation work at the house that Keisha had bought and was improving with her own money. This is what you're doing now? Flipping houses. It's called building a business. With what money? My money. The money I earned myself. But you could have lost everything. What if the house didn't sell? Then I would have figured it out. That's what people do when they take responsibility for their own lives. Marcus looked hurt. I took responsibility. I paid you back. You paid me back after you got caught. That's not the same thing. Keisha, I know I messed up. But I've learned from it. Good. Go learn somewhere else. Tony stepped closer to Marcus. I think you should leave now. Marcus looked at Keisha one more time. This isn't over. Yes, it is. As Marcus walked away, Tony asked, You want me to call the police? No. But if he comes back, don't let him near me. Don't worry. He won't. That evening, Keisha sat in her newly renovated kitchen, looking through the final profit statements from the Oak Park house sale. $28,000 profit in less than 3 months. The Evanston house would be worth even more when it was finished. Her consulting business was growing faster than she'd expected. She was financially independent, professionally successful, and personally free. Marcus thought he could win her back by showing up and begging. He had no idea that she'd already won. 6 months later, Keisha stood in the kitchen of her third investment property, a beautiful Victorian in Lincoln Park that she'd just finished renovating. The real estate photographer was taking final shots for the listing. This is going to be your biggest profit yet, Jasmine said, reviewing the numbers. We should get at least $320 for this one. After everything we put into it, that's a profit of $90,000. In 4 months of work. Keisha smiled, looking around the space. Crown molding, restored hardwood floors, a chef's kitchen with marble countertops. It was beautiful and it was hers. Her phone buzzed with a call from Jennifer, one of her employees. Keisha, the restaurant chain wants to expand our contract again. They're opening 5 more locations and want us to handle all their social media. How much? $8,000 a month. Take it. Her consulting business now employed 4 full-time people and had a waiting list of clients. Revenue was approaching $40,000 a month. Crystal called while she was driving home. Girl, you are not going to believe what I just heard. What? Marcus got arrested. Keisha nearly swerved off the road. What? DUI. Apparently he's been drinking heavily since he got back to Chicago. Is he okay? Physically? Yeah. But his lawyer says he might lose his license, and the consulting firm that was about to hire him rescinded their offer. Keisha felt a mix of concern and relief. Concern because she didn't want Marcus to hurt himself or anyone else. Relief because it meant he'd finally stop trying to contact her. When did this happen? Last night. He's been released on bail, but he has to go to court next month. Has he tried to contact you? No. I think he finally got the message that you're done with him. After the call, Keisha thought about Marcus. She hadn't heard from him since the restraining order was served 2 months ago. She'd assumed he'd finally moved on with his life. Apparently he'd been falling apart instead. She felt sorry for him, but she also felt grateful that she'd been strong enough to walk away. That evening, she had dinner with Jasmine and Tony to celebrate the completion of the Lincoln Park house. So what's next? Tony asked. Another flip? Actually, I'm thinking about keeping the next one. As a rental property? As my home. Jasmine raised her eyebrows. You're thinking about moving? I'm thinking about starting fresh. New house, new neighborhood, new life. What about your grandmother's house? I'll always love that house. But it's time to build something that's completely mine. The next day, Keisha met with her real estate agent to look at houses in her price range. With her business income and real estate profits, she could afford something much nicer than she'd ever imagined. The third house they looked at was perfect. A modern townhouse in River North with floor-to-ceiling windows, a rooftop deck, and a home office space perfect for her growing business. I'll take it, she said. Don't you want to think about it? I've been thinking about it for months. This is exactly what I want. The closing took 3 weeks. Moving day was on a Saturday in early fall, exactly 1 year after Marcus had sent her that text message. As she carried the last box out of her grandmother's house, Keisha thought about how much had changed. 1 year ago, she'd been a woman who was afraid to make decisions without her husband's approval. Now she owned 3 properties, ran a successful business, and was financially independent. 1 year ago, she'd thought her life was over when Marcus left. Now she realized it had just begun. Her phone rang as she was locking the door for the last time. Keisha? This is Robert Chin, Marcus's lawyer. Why are you calling me? Marcus asked me to contact you. He's in a court-ordered rehabilitation program, and part of his treatment involves making amends to people he's hurt. I don't want to hear from him. I understand. But he wanted me to tell you that he's genuinely sorry for what he did. He knows he can't undo it, but he wanted you to know that he takes full responsibility. Is that all? He also wanted me to tell you that he's proud of what you've accomplished. He knows about your business success and your real estate investments. How does he know about that? It's a small community. Word gets around. Keisha thought about it. Tell him I said thank you for the apology. And tell him I hope he gets the help he needs. I will. But also tell him that I never want to hear from him again. This is the last conversation we'll ever have about him. Understood. After the call, Keisha drove to her new townhouse and walked through the empty rooms. Sunlight streamed through the windows, highlighting the gleaming hardwood floors and fresh paint. Tomorrow her furniture would arrive. Next week she'd host her first business meeting in her new home office. But tonight she was going to sit on her rooftop deck with a glass of wine and think about how far she'd come. Her phone buzzed with a text from Crystal. How does it feel to be completely free? Keisha looked out over the Chicago skyline, at the city where she'd built her new life. It feels like I can do anything. What's next? Keisha smiled. She had so many plans. Expand the business into other cities. Buy more investment properties. Maybe even write a book about building a life after betrayal. Everything. As the sun set over the city, Keisha realized that Marcus had been right about one thing. She would have fought for their marriage if he'd asked for a divorce honestly. But he'd been wrong about everything else. He'd thought taking her money would leave her helpless. Instead, it had forced her to discover her own strength. He'd thought abandoning her would destroy her. Instead, it had freed her to become who she was meant to be. He thought she needed him to survive. Instead, she'd learned that she was capable of thriving on her own. Marcus had tried to take her future. But in the end, he'd given her something much better. The knowledge that she could build any future she wanted. 1 year ago, she'd been a woman whose husband had stolen her savings and abandoned her with a text message. Now she was a successful business owner, real estate investor, and completely independent woman who owed her happiness to no one but herself. Marcus had thought he was getting the last laugh when he sent that text message. But the last laugh was hers. And it was the sweetest sound she'd ever heard.